Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Mansoor Somro, for your invitation and introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here at this Customer Experience Summit. The trend has now shifted from what is reasonable enough, a conference, to a summit. जब तक कोई चीज summit ना हो तो फिर क्या फायदा? And I can see all the summit heads sitting here, mashallah, individuals who have, I'm sure, represented and do represent a range of sectors and specific areas of activity. And I just had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Raza, who is a veteran of Mizan Bank. And in those brief minutes, I've heard of the remarkable progress that bank has made. And I'm sure within yourselves you have individual accounts and experiences of the institutional achievements of your respective organizations. I was very pleasantly surprised that punctuality is alive and well in our beloved country, Pakistan, and to see all of you here. I'm going to wish Mansoor Somro Saab and his colleagues success for the holding of this event, and I hope that the proceedings are going to be informative and purposeful. The theme chosen, of course, customer experience. And my subject is serving the nation. And what is the nation? We tend to use the term quite freely and loosely. But कौम क्या चीज़ है? और ख़ास तौर पर पाकिस्तान के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में क्या एक बनी बनाई एक तयशुदा हैसियत होती है कौम की, और क्या ये एक इनडिफाइनेबल एंटिटी है? हमने अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा तो बना दिया यूनाइटेड नेशंस. Actually it should have been called United States, because each state can contain many nations. Switzerland has at least 3 nations. But because this small country called the United States of America had also already decided to call itself United States, so they went for United Nations. But when you look at how scholars attempt to define a nation, what is a nation? There is a scholar called Hugh Seaton Watson, for example, who's acknowledged as the finest authority on research into what makes nations. And he came to the conclusion that no scientific definition is possible about what constitutes a nation. I've quoted him in my book, Pakistan, Unique Origins, Unique Destiny, with a question mark, published 4 years ago. Now it's going into its 3rd edition. It's also in Urdu and Sindhi, in case you want to make the mistake of reading it. It's been published in India as well, under a slightly different title, but with the same text. In that book, I've presented, through research, 8 reasons why, in my humble opinion, Pakistan is the single most uniquely created nation state of all 193 members of the United Nations. And to this day, no scholar in Pakistan or overseas has questioned those 8 reasons. I won't tell you those 8 reasons, obviously, because I'd like you to go and buy the book and make my publisher happy, and I'll probably get 10% of the royalties if I ever get the royalties. See? But people say कि पाकिस्तान में अब किताबें पढ़ने का रुझान खत्म हो गया है टेलीविजन की वजह से. It's nonsense. Those who want to read, read. Bookshops are doing very well. The other day I was walking past the airport bookshop and I said, "How is business?" He said, "Quite good, sir. We do 18 to 20,000 rupees sales every day." And what do they sell? I said, "You got a huge amount of Urdu books." He said, "Sir, mostly English books and mostly Pakistanis." MashaAllah. And a small publisher in Lahore told me recently, "Javed sir, I am devoting my full time to meeting demand. I did an Urdu translation of an American intellectual called Noam Chomsky, in case you've heard of him. He's a Yahudi. Yahudis to Musalmanon mein popular nahi hote, but he's an American Jew who is the most outspoken critic of America's policies vis-a-vis Israel. And he's probably the most pro-Muslim progressive intellectual in the world today. Anyway, so this small publisher in Lahore tells me I have sold 40,000 copies of an Urdu translation of Noam Chomsky's book. MashaAllah. So, reading is alive and well. And this is part of this unique nation called Pakistan. So how do you serve the nation? And in the context of this experience of customer experience, is the nation a customer? How can a nation be a customer? Because the nation is made up of so many disparities and inequalities and contrasts. 48 hours ago I was in Khairpur and I was learning from people who live in villages or live in these small towns that there's a lot of hassle and bustle. And there is poverty, but there's also change, motorcycles being bought, toiletries selling, fast-moving consumer goods are doing very well. And Khairpur, I hope some of you have been to Khairpur. Have you? Put up your hands, please. Ah, good. So you know how beautiful it is. There's a legend about Khairpur. How come neither in Sakkar, nor in Naushero Firoz, nor in Lardana do you have so many palm trees? Beautiful date palm trees. And the legend is a great peer flew over Sindh. And he spotted Khairpur and he threw down seeds. And those seeds have created this incredibly beautiful orchard of a state called Khairpur. By the way, Khairpur was the first part of Pakistan which made education free and compulsory back in 1950. It was also the first part of Pakistan which introduced adult franchise. Every adult man and every adult woman was given the right to vote. It took Pakistan another 20 years in 1970 to bring that forward. So what is a nation? The poor and the rich, the middle class, everyone is part of the nation. And how do you serve the nation? Well, you treat them as customers. But I prefer to look at the nation as being composed of citizens. Citizens first. They can't be customers before you recognize them and respect them as citizens, as social beings, people who have human relationships with their wives, their girlfriends, their husbands, brothers, sisters, cousins, business associates, neighbors, social beings. So the nation is really composed of citizens, and then they become, yes, consumers, and they become your customers, and they become, of course, their producers in their own right, their managers, and their workers, and so on. That's a myriad. And because it's predominantly private sector, I would imagine, कोई किसी बेचारे मासूम पब्लिक सेक्टर कॉर्पोरेशन से किसी को बुला लिया गलती से, मंसूर सुंदरो साहब, ये सारे के सारे प्राइवेट सेक्टर के जालिम प्रॉफिट मेकिंग कैरेक्टर्स बैठे हैं यहाँ पर, यानी कि एक भी पब्लिक सेक्टर कॉर्पोरेशन का कोई मासूम नुमाइंदा नहीं है इधर। हाय हाय, ये क्या सानेहा है। अरे बाबा, पब्लिक सेक्टर के कॉर्पोरेशंस भी इस मुल्क में मौजूद हैं, बड़े पैमाने पे मौजूद हैं, और बावजूद बदनाम होने के उनके स्टेट सेक्टर तो यार निकम्मा है, इनएफिशिएंट है, नाअहल है। सारी अहलियत प्राइवेट सेक्टर में, क्योंकि आजकल तो रियासत खुद अपने बुनियादी फ्राय से पीछे हटकर हर चीज में चाहती है कि पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप कर लो। जी हमसे स्कूल नहीं चल रहे हैं तो जी आप आके एडॉप्ट कर दें हमारे स्कूल को। ला हौला हॉस्पिटल नहीं चल रहा है तो जी आप आकर हॉस्पिटल का ये वार्ड की जिम्मेदारी ले लो। तौबा, रियासत की ये जो बीमारी है कुछ हिस्सों में ये कितना गलत तासुर देती है अबाउट द स्टेट एंड द पब्लिक सेक्टर, जिसके कस्टमर्स हैं और जिसके कस्टमर्स उमूमन सारे सिटीजन। प्राइवेट सेक्टर में तो कस्टमर वो होता है जो आपके प्रोडक्ट को अफोर्ड करे या आपके प्रोडक्ट में दिलचस्पी है। मैं आंखों से आंख मिलाकर मुखातिब होना चाहता हूं मेरे दोस्त, स्मार्टफोन को छोड़ दे यार, मैंने भी अपना स्मार्टफोन बंद कर दिया है। मेरी गर्लफ्रेंड इस वक्त शायद कोशिश कर रही है मुझे बात करने की, कितनी डांट पड़ेगी मुझे कि तुमने मेरा फोन नहीं रिसीव किया, लेकिन जो मैं काम कर रहा हूं आपके सामने हाजिर हूं, तो आंखों से आंखें जो बात होती है ना वो आवाज से नहीं होती। सो वी मस्ट एंगेज आवरसेल्व्स विद द आईज, कस्टमर और नो कस्टमर। शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत आपको।
I was doing it actually silent.
Thank you so much.
Tuji.
How do we go to acknowledge what public sector institutions do? The nation is their customer. चाहे एक हिस्सा हो, कहां से शुरू करूं? माशाल्लाह, मुझे बड़ा फख्र है कि मैं पाकिस्तानी हूं और कुछ ऐसे इदारे हैं इस मुल्क में जो पब्लिक सेक्टर है और they have achieved excellence not only within the country but international levels of excellence. And the first one I want to mention is the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. इसका डेली आपके साथ कांटेक्ट नहीं होता, इसकी ब्रांचेस नहीं है, इट्स नॉट अ बैंक, बट स्टार्टिंग इन द लेट 1950s, the original chairpersons of this commission, my father worked as finance advisor for some time, so I got to know it from another perspective. But I want to acknowledge the contribution of men who have been forgotten, because Dr. A.Q. Khan has taken all the publicity and the credit. Wrongly, I think, because behind that was a whole set of people, engineers, technical specialists, scientists who had been groomed by people like Dr. Nazir Ahmad, Dr. Ayach Usmani, Munir Hussain, who created this cadre of outstandingly competent people. Unknown, they were never reported in the media. But today, whether it is radioisotopes in medical applications of peaceful atomic energy, or whether it is at the other extreme, kahuta, bam bana diya ji, bam bana diya, mashallah. सबसे बड़ा खिलौना, सबसे खतरनाक खिलौना, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान ने हमें मजबूर किया. Look at what the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission has done and continues to do very quietly. Look at नादरा, तो नाम भी ऐसा चुना है, पाकिस्तानी नाम चुनने में माहिर. नादरा, क्या बात है. और नादरा बावजूद मुख्तलिफ एपिसोड्स आप पढ़ते हैं कि जी जाली कार्ड इशू हो गया. Look at the phenomenal work it has done. Far ahead of India. इंडिया को तो बाद में जाके एहसास हुआ कि ये भी हो सकता है. नादरा proved that you can make accurate records within 99% accuracy of 180 million, now probably 200 million, जिसमें से adults minimum 100 million को होंगे. 100 million people cataloged, identified, and so efficiently that countries in Africa, in South Asia, Sri Lanka, Kenya, Nigeria want Nadra to come and teach them, show them how to do it. Wow! Look at the scale of operation. 100 million customers. Look at the State Bank of Pakistan. नीज़ान बैंक को सीधे रास्ते पे चलाने वाले. हालांकि नीज़ान बैंक को की नौयत ही ये है कि वो सीधे रास्ते पे चलते हैं, तो इनको चलाने दिखाने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. But look at the State Bank of Pakistan. Very quiet, but it does effective regulation. And one of the reasons why Pakistan did not fall victim to the international financial global crisis of 2008 was the very careful, conservative regulation of the State Bank of Pakistan. उसके inefficiencies होंगे, किसी institution adequately नहीं करता, but it served the country's purpose very well. Then take the Security Printing Corporation of Pakistan. We take it for granted. हम तो अपने जेबों में और बैंक अकाउंट्स में उसका पैसा रखते हैं. We underestimate the accuracy, the finesse, and the technology with which millions of notes produced and distributed, then exchanged, whatever, whether it's passports, whether it is currency denominations. And of course, all countries do it, but the Pakistan Security Printing Corporation has a high standard of excellence. Take education. Education में तो सब कहते हैं यार private sector education है, सारे बाकी के नाअहल हैं, गवर्नमेंट कॉलेजेस वगैरह. मुझे बड़ा humble pride है. कुछ साल पहले डॉक्टर इशरत हुसैन invited me to be an adjunct visiting professor at IBA Karachi. I used to go there for occasional lectures, but just being associated with a public sector institution. IBA is not a private sector institution. Private sector ने support उसको बहुत किया. But what a pleasure to see IBA producing exceptional leaders for the private sector. A public sector institution doing outstanding service for the corporate sector. And even our beloved Election Commission of Pakistan, हालांकि बड़ी नाअहलियत वो दिखाते हैं, to its credit, it has managed to compile electoral rolls in a country where there has been no census since 1998, and it's a state institution. So, the state is capable of serving its customers. And this is only half the story. Let me come to the military sphere. Look at what Pakistan Air Force Kamra is. What is it? इसके बारे में ज़्यादा शायद दिल ना हो. Pakistan Air Force today is probably the only air force in the whole world which produces its own aircraft. The J-17 trainer, produced in collaboration with China, is made by PAF Kamra. My God, no other air force does this. They contract it to private sector parties. And therefore, this trainer aircraft is not just meeting Pakistan's requirements. Nigeria has placed an order. Saudi Arabia wants some. Other countries want some. That's the kind of technological capacity we are showing. Look at the heavy mechanical complex Taxila. 20 years ago, not now, 20 years ago, when CERN, CERN, Center for Physics Research in Switzerland, in France, you must have heard of the Large Hadron Collider. The Hadron Collider is a system unprecedented in human history where scientists are trying to split even the atom by transmitting the atom at the speed of light, if possible. And they put out an international tender for high quality tunnels which would withstand all kinds of pressures and decay. And guess what? The heavy mechanical complex Taxila won the right to make that tunnel. So a Pakistani fabricated technology is today associated with one of the world's foremost examples of scientific research. And it continues. Take the whole defense production sector. The other day, we had ideas as an exhibition in Karachi and a range of equipment. हालांकि मुझे बहुत ही बुरा लगता है असलाह, लेकिन कुछ साल पहले जब हम मुशर्रफ साहब की काबीना में थे तो मुझे कहा गया कि इसके लिए थीम आप डिवाइस करें. I said it almost tongue in cheek and it has become the theme. I called it Arms for Peace. Because arms are obviously used as weapons. But if you have the right arms, then you protect yourself. And you are living next door to a country which is the world's largest importer of weapons. So we can't ignore it. arms for peace. And look at the incredible range of Pakistani-made armaments, whether it's artillery, whether it's tanks, whether it is aircraft. And then look at our capacity to produce another unfortunate thing called a missile upon missile, produced by Pakistanis. Look at teleconnectivity. Teleconnectivity sometimes in Pakistan is better than parts of the United States. I've personally witnessed it. In travels in the US, I have difficulty sometimes getting a signal, whereas relatively speaking, Pakistan is far better covered. And जो टीवी चैनल्स ने हमारे नर्वस सिस्टम के ऊपर जो हमला कर रखा है, जब हमने ये कानून लिखा था, हमें पता नहीं था कि ये हमारे नर्वस हेल्थ पर इतना बड़ा अटैक करेंगे. तो बेस्ट थिंग इज ऑफ कोर्स नॉट टू वॉच दैट. बट इवन दैट, पाकिस्तान out of 54 Muslim countries has the most vibrant media sector, most outspoken. हालांकि आप बात चीज़ों पे बात नहीं कर सकते, अदलिया के बारे में, अफवाज पाकिस्तान के बारे में, इस्लाम के कुछ पहलुओं पर बात ही नहीं कर सकते, वरना तो आप काफिर हो जाएंगे. लेकिन फिर भी the freedom of speech in Pakistani media is the highest. स्टेट ने इसको मुमकिन बनाया. और आपका पसंदीदा इदारा PIA, जिसकी डिक्लाइन को हमने देखा है. आप तो माशाल्लाह अभी अभी पैदा हुए हैं, हम खुशकिस्मती से 1960s में देखा है. ब्यूटिफुल, ग्रेट पीपल टू फ्लाई विद. व्हाट प्राइड, व्हाट a beautiful example of excellence of Pakistan. लेकिन दाद देनी चाहिए. अभी मैं गया हुई पूरा गो बाय टू सक्कर, 1 घंटे की फ्लाइट. 1 घंटे की फ्लाइट में दे आर विलिंग टू सर्व यू अ फुल सैंडविच एंड अ मीठा कोल्ड ड्रिंक. आप अमेरिका चले जाएं, अरे ये तो दूर की बात है, 2 घंटे की फ्लाइट पे भी आपको पैसे देने पड़ेंगे खरीदने के लिए. वो एक अलग ना खरीदिए, आप क्रेडिट कार्ड से पे करें. एंड देयर मैनर एंड देयर होल एटीट्यूड. And here in Pakistan is a service system which serves you food, recollects it. Within 45 minutes, everything is done. Every passenger has been taken. The same thing on the Lahore-Islamabad sector. So, despite its operational and fiscal problems, PIA is another example. And then, let's not forget, even the National Institute for Cardiovascular Diseases in Karachi. Take the Armed Forces Institute of Cardiology in Rawalpindi, even in the health sector, despite other problems. लेकिन सारी बात अच्छी नहीं है, खुशी नहीं है, इनकंसिस्टेंसी. एक तो है रईसों के लिए बहुत अच्छे एयरपोर्ट्स, क्योंकि सारे आप जैसे रईस प्लेन से ट्रैवल करते हैं. ट्रेन से तो आप दोबारा नहीं करेंगे कि मैं मुझ जैसा टॉप कॉर्पोरेट एग्जीक्यूटिव मैं ट्रेन में बैठूं, सवाल ही नहीं पैदा होता. मेरा वक्त एक तो इतना कीमती है. सो रेलवेज में बेचारी क्योंकि मिडिल क्लास और लोअर क्लास जाती है, तो रेलवे स्टेशन का हाल देखें एयरपोर्ट्स के साथ कंपेयर करें. और बस में तो बैठना सवाल ही नहीं पैदा होता. आप मुझ जैसा इज्जत शख्स हो, बस में तो पकड़ा ही नहीं जाएगा. यू डोंट वांट टू बी कॉट डेड इन अ बस. सो बस टर्मिनल्स हैव नो टॉयलेट्स, स्पेशली फॉर विमेन. मर्द तो माशाल्लाह दीवारें इस्तेमाल कर देते हैं. But have you ever thought of the millions of women who have to suffer no access to toilets? So, the state, whether it is rampant corruption or inefficiency, does not do justice to it. और ये साजिश होगी अपने state. ISI ने तो फौरन स्विच ऑफ कर दिया. ISI इतना ना करो, अपने ISI को पूरा नहीं किया.
1 second.
But you know, there is also state का ना अहल होने की एक वजह. There is a massive rampant culture of evasion. We have about 28 million families in Pakistan, households, for a population of 228 million. Let us assume that 14 million, let's say 16 million, majority kar do, 18 million are too poor to pay taxes. That's not correct, but let me exaggerate it. What does that mean? It means 10 million people in the middle class, upper middle, lower middle. 10 million! And you see them all over. Travel to Faisalabad, travel to the son of my tenant in nursery runs an online marketing company. I said, Mashallah, Karachi, Lahore. He said, sir, forget Karachi, Lahore. 80% of my business comes from small towns. Shopkeepers, customers, individuals who just go online and order, and he can't keep pace. So, 10 million people, how many pay taxes? Direct taxes? 1.2 million. 8.8 million. Colossal figure. Who have the capacity to pay tax, direct tax, and choose not to pay it. And then we expect the state to serve the nation. Serve the nation. One good sign. Timing is flawless.
Sir, I have your authority on that.
Of course, I'm ending with two unprecious thoughts. The private sector, I think, deserves credit. It has pioneered the industrialization of Pakistan in the 1950s and then in the 1960s, laid the foundation for enterprise. It had a setback in the 1970s due to nationalization and due to political instability, but it has persevered. I don't want to give the example of the Karachi Stock Exchange alone, which is a good example, but it's a bubble, it's isolated. But generally, enterprise in Pakistan has been instrumental in creating thousands, millions of jobs, and not just in industry and the services, but also to a limited extent even in agriculture, where the potential has never been achieved. The good grace about our beloved country and our people is this ability to be compassionate, to reach out to a person who may not be a customer, but is a human being. And एक तरफ direct tax देने से गुरेज करते हैं, लेकिन charity, खैरात देने में सबसे अव्वल। और ये अगर attitude positivity का एक बस last मेरा जो point है, how do you serve the nation? मेरी नाचीज राय में nation के सबसे अहम हिस्से इस वक्त हमारे बच्चे हैं और हमारी खवातीन हैं। इन दोनों segments के साथ जो इस मुल्क में ज्यादती हम करते हैं, कि 25 million children by one estimate are not even in school. What a crime this is! A collective failure. 25 million. उसको अगर आप हाफ भी कर लें, 12 million, 1 करोड़ 20 लाख बच्चे जिनमें इतना हुनर है, नेचुरल टैलेंट है, पोटेंशियल है, एंड विमेन। पर फख्र भी करना चाहिए, हम सब सिंध सूबे के रहने वाले हैं, एक के बाद एक यही सिंध असेंबली जिसमें हम जानते हैं कि करप्ट लोग रहते हुए, लेकिन इतने प्रोग्रेसिव लॉज पास किए हैं सिंध ने to protect women, to protect children against premature child marriage. So there is hope. There is hope that the nation will continue to be served by people in the public sector and people in the private sector. Thank you for your patience.